Tensions flare in the South China Sea as the Philippines and China blame each other for ship collisions. Israel ramps up its aerial strikes in Gaza, while a Taipei mosque raises funds for Palestinian civilians in the besieged enclave. In a TaiwanPlus exclusive, the governor of Bangkok talks gun violence almost a month after a deadly shooting that rocked the Thai capital. Plus,
would you come all the way to southern Taiwan just to eat fruit? Well, the mayor of Tainan sure hopes you will. Coming up in today's show, we'll tell you why. Plus, he's going to show us the unusual way that locals eat tomatoes.
Hello and welcome. I'm Eric Gao, and you're watching TaiwanPlus News. The U.S. says it stands with the Philippines against what it calls dangerous and unlawful actions by China in the South China Sea. Beijing and Manila accuse each other of causing two ship collisions in a disputed part of those waters. Philippine authorities say a Chinese Coast Guard ship carried out dangerous blocking maneuvers and collided with a Philippine vessel trying to resupply another ship in the Second Thomas Shoal. But China says it was the Philippines that violated international maritime law, putting their ships in danger. Carrier strike groups from both the U.S. and China are operating in the South China Sea as tensions there remain high. Now, these collisions are the latest in a string of recent clashes in the South China Sea. For more on the risks of military escalation there, our reporter Jaime Ocon spoke to Stanford University security analyst Ray Powell.
China and the Philippines are accusing each other of collisions in a disputed area of the South China Sea. How dangerous was this incident?
Well, I think this one in particular, I think, was quite dangerous because of the size differential between the two ships involved, right? So it's not hard at all to envision a scenario in which the two ships collided and the little ship was essentially just run over. That came very close to happening, I think. But the boat's mission is to go to the other side of where the Coast Guard ship is, right? That its mission is to deliver the supplies to Second Thomas Shoal, and the Chinese ship is blocking the way. So the resupply boat has to go through somehow, and perhaps I'm sure that there are people on that little boat who are counting their blessings that things didn't go worse. And in some ways, I think you can also say something like this was inevitable. And we've been seeing how close these encounters have been. And piloting a ship on the water is not like driving a car on land. You can't just take a turn and know where you're going to end up all the time. There is a huge variance that happens, and you're not quite sure exactly. That's why you have to keep these distances. And as you've seen, they have not been keeping the distances.
We've seen incidents between China and the Philippines before. China has flashed a military-grade laser at the Philippines. It's fired a water cannon at Philippine vessels. But this incident, is this a sign of escalation in the region?
I think so certainly in effect, it is an escalation. I think that it's a difference in degree rather than kind, right? Because there have been the swarming, the near ramming, the blocking, all of these things have been happening. And so the fact that eventually it's going to end up with two ships or two vessels swapping paint, as it were, seems kind of inevitable. So I don't know that there is. I do think that China knows that the U.S. and its allies are distracted, and clearly the U.S. and its allies are distracted, right? I mean, there's a hot war going on in Europe, and there is a maelstrom going on in the Middle East. So yes, the U.S. and its allies are distracted. To what degree that plays into China's decision to go harder at this, I don't know.
Satellite imagery is now showing that the U.S. and China are operating carrier strike groups in the South China Sea. Is this another sign of the tensions that we're seeing in the South China Sea?
Well, I think mostly what it's a sign of is the fact that China is a fast-growing military power, which didn't used to have a carrier strike group. And the United States, of course, has operated carrier strike groups in the South China Sea for a very, very long time. So this kind of situation is going to happen more often. The South China Sea is going to be more militarized simply because China, as a growing military power, has a much, much larger navy than it has before. So the two navies are going to have to interact in the South China Sea on a semi-regular basis. I think that they probably will keep it professional. Neither one of them is looking for war, I don't think.
That was Ray Powell, a security analyst at Stanford University, speaking to our reporter Jaime Ocon. Taiwan's defense ministry is investigating whether a civilian boat was damaged in artillery tests. The whale-watching boat was hit by an unknown object off the coast of Ilan in Taiwan's northeast. Taiwan's military was testing dummy mortar rounds near that area at the time, but says the boat was outside the designated danger zone. None of the people on board were injured, but railings and glass on the vessel were damaged. The ministry is looking into what happened.
它的栏杆是不是会因为东北季风很大，漂流木、顶浪泡上来，打到之后，这个也是有可能等等的事件，我们都是不排除的。
South Korea, Japan, and the United States held their first ever joint military air drills over the weekend. The exercises took place south of the Korean peninsula and involved U.S. nuclear-capable bombers. They're part of an effort by those three countries to shore up defenses against growing missile and nuclear threats from North Korea. Pyongyang views these drills as a rehearsal for an invasion. Israel is ramping up its aerial bombardment of Gaza, saying it hit 320 military targets inside the enclave overnight. Palestinian health officials say the death toll in Gaza has now reached over 4,600 during Israel's counteroffensive. It's been just over 2 weeks now since Hamas, the militant group that runs Gaza, launched an attack on Israel, killing over 1,400 people. A second aid convoy has been allowed into the Gaza Strip as the humanitarian crisis there worsens. Western leaders released a joint statement reiterating their support for Israel, but calling on the country to follow humanitarian law and to protect civilians. Over the weekend, the Taipei Grand Mosque held a charity drive for Palestinian victims of the Israel-Hamas conflict. Bing Wang was there.
10-year-old Ryan is writing letters to Palestine. He's from Jordan, but has been living in Taiwan most of his life. He's writing from the river to the sea, a popular but controversial Palestinian political slogan. Although he's young, his parents have taught him about the Palestinian struggle for a homeland. And now he spends his time at school raising awareness of the ongoing conflict between Hamas and Israel. Ryan is one of 60,000 Muslims in Taiwan. He and hundreds of people are attending a charity drive here at the Taipei Grand Mosque, where the proceeds will go to people in the Gaza Strip.
We hope that with this kind of event, our Taiwanese brothers and sisters can also understand that we have a group of people who are supporting the people in Palestine.
On October 7, the Palestinian militant group Hamas launched a surprise attack on Israel, killing around 1,400 Israelis. Israel responded with airstrikes on the Gaza Strip, which have reportedly killed more than 4,000 people. There are only 32 Palestinians in Taiwan, mostly students, but the Muslim community here wants to offer their support to those in Gaza.
It's all about politics, and it has nothing to do with Islam or Jewish people or Muslims.
We are here just praying for them, and of course that's the least we could do. And for us, I think, as human beings, that's the least we could do.
The charity drive ended with a prayer for the Palestinian people and peace in their region. Taiwan's government has offered Israel support, even lighting Taipei 101 with the Israeli flag. But from this charity drive, it's clear there's also support for Palestine in Taiwan. Devin Tai and Bing Wang for TaiwanPlus.
A prominent Taiwanese author has been indicted over allegations of sexual misconduct. Lucifer Chu is accused of forcibly kissing a woman at a restaurant last year. If convicted, he faces up to 5 years behind bars. The allegation came during a wave of sexual harassment accusations this summer in what is now called Taiwan's Me Too movement. At the time, Chu said that he would take responsibility for his actions and turn himself in to the authorities. Shares in Taiwanese electronics giant Foxconn slumped by as much as 3% over reports that it is under investigation in China. This comes after Chinese state media said that the Fortune 500 company is the subject of a probe into its taxes and its land use. Foxconn is best known for assembling Apple's iPhone, and it has large operations in China. The company has responded to the investigation by saying that it prioritizes legal compliance in its businesses everywhere. This comes just months before Taiwan's presidential election, where Foxconn founder Terry Guo hopes to run as an independent. Meanwhile, police in Taipei have broken up a group they say gathered fake signatures backing Guo's presidential bid. Guo is hoping to run as an independent, but first he needs enough supporting signatures to qualify. Taipei prosecutors say a pawn shop sold the personal information of its customers to a signature gathering initiative. 7 suspects have been arrested in connection with this case. This follows the bust of another alleged signature buying scheme in Hsinchu. Guo's campaign says it has no connections to these groups. Elsewhere in local politics, Taiwan's presidential candidates had a busy weekend on the campaign trail. John Van Trieste gives us a look at the latest.
Welcomed with fanfare, presidential candidate Ko Wen-je opens a local campaign office in the northern county of Miaoli. He's here to back his Taiwan People's Party's candidates for local office. But local matters aren't what has reporters' attention. The big question here is whether Ko will team up with someone else, perhaps the main opposition Kuomintang's Hou You-yi, to pull support in what could become a tight 4-way race. So far, attempts to get talks moving haven't gone anywhere. But Ko says that doesn't mean they won't eventually.
这也是一个办法的，通常这样的，有困难的先 hold 住嘛，可以解决的先解决，这也是一种策略。
If there are plans for cooperation, Hou You-yi didn't mention them at his latest big campaign event. Instead, he focused on policy, promising changes to the pension system that would be to the advantage of soldiers, police, firefighters, teachers, and other public employees. And he took aim at the China policy of his ruling Democratic Progressive Party rival Lai Ching-te.
尤其赖清德公然说支持台独万岁，台独的务实工作者，你不是要引战，你不但我们要备战，最重要不能引战，卖个底下骗了，你骗了选票。
For his part, Lai Ching-te focused on the southern city of Tainan, where he used to be mayor. He hit out at rivals who support the One China principle, saying accepting Beijing's claim to Taiwan won't bring peace. He also said his party needs a legislative majority to keep up progress in Taiwan's efforts to build its domestic submarine fleet. And he talked up his party's achievements in the 8 years it's held the presidency.
日本的公司拢来台湾投资，什么原因呢？因为台积电半导体产业伫台南投资，台积电按5奈米。 咱真用心甲清楚解决用水的问题，解决雅士的问题。
One of the biggest questions in this campaign season is whether the election will turn out to be a 3-way or a 4-way race. Electronics tycoon Terry Guo is gathering signatures in an effort to get on the ballot as an independent. His possible candidacy is in the spotlight again, amid news that Beijing is investigating the company he founded for suspected breaches of Chinese law. But his camp says that the investigation won't affect Guo or his campaign.
郭董从4年前就交出经营权，那都没有去开董事会，今年更是把挂名的董事都辞掉。
Though fewer than 100 days remain before Election Day, there are still big unknowns. Big questions like who might ally with whom and how many candidates will make the ballot are still impossible to predict, meaning voters can expect the final stretch of campaigning to be a busy one. Joseph Wu and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Coming up after the break, an Indigenous community is reviving one of their shared traditions.
Standing Strong, every Thursday, 10 a.m. on TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus News. For more stories from Taiwan and around the rest of the world, please visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow us on social media. Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese will meet China's President Xi Jinping in Beijing. That's after a breakthrough in the country's trade dispute over Australian wine.
It is important that we stabilise our relationship with China. That is in the interests of Australia and China, and it is indeed in the interests of the world.
Albanese says China has agreed to review its tariff hikes on his country's wine. He made that announcement just hours before flying to the U.S. to meet President Joe Biden. Albanese plans to visit Beijing after that trip before he heads back to the U.S. for the Leaders Summit of APEC, a major economic forum. It's one of the few international meetings that Taiwan is not blocked from attending by China. The founder of Taiwanese chip giant TSMC, Joyce Tseng, will represent Taiwan for the 5th time. It's been almost a month since the deadly shooting in one of Thailand's most popular shopping malls. In an exclusive interview with TaiwanPlus, Bangkok's governor shares how the incident has impacted his city and the broader issues surrounding gun violence. Joyce Tseng reports from Bangkok.
It's one of the worst acts of gun violence in Thailand's recent memory. Less than a month ago, a 14-year-old gunman opened fire in Siam Paragon, one of the most visited shopping malls in Asia, right at the heart of Bangkok's dense commercial district. 2 women were killed, one from China and the other from Myanmar. And just days ago, a 3rd woman, a Thai national, died in hospital. Now, mass shootings like this are rare in Thailand, but gun violence is not. And the incident has renewed attention on Thailand's lax gun laws and also issues of public safety and youth mental health. Now, I'm here at Bangkok City Hall to talk to the capital's top leader, Governor Chachat Sittipan, about how he intends for Bangkok to move forward from such a tragedy and make sure that something like it does not happen again. Thank you, Governor Chachat, for speaking with us today. If I may start with the Paragon shooting on October 3rd, can you walk us through your initial reaction and also the mood in Bangkok since the incident?
Yeah, well, it was a tragedy, you know, and not only is a lot of loss of life, and also what happened to the young, you know, the youth, like 14 years old. So I think we were shocked by this. Not happen often in Bangkok, especially for the kid, you know. So I think that's a reaction, and then we try to think what really happening, what's the cause of it, you know. There are many unanswered questions that we have to maybe looking into details and try to prevent another incident like this. Yeah.
So right after the incident, the new Prime Minister, Srettha Thavisin, said he'll be tightening gun regulations, and then also the metal detectors at mall entrances are back. That's not a new measure. But do you think this is enough? What do you think needs to be done to convince not just tourists, but everyone in Bangkok that your city is safe?
Things are more complicated now. You can obtain gun through internet. There are many incidents happening around the world. So I think the world is changing. I think what I heard, the gun was obtained through like internet ordering as a blank gun. Blank gun is not intended to be harmful, right? But with some modification, it can turn to be a deadly weapon. So I think the laws, they have to be updated to the current situation. Maybe the law, some of our laws may be a little bit outdated. I mean, the law, gun control is not in our jurisdiction. So I think maybe this one thing that you can do. Metal detection, I think maybe it can put some like screening, but we cannot guarantee it's 100%, There's still some loopholes.
So as you mentioned, maybe gun control is out of your personal jurisdiction, but as Bangkok Governor, what kind of pressure can you add to the government to do something?
I think we have the task force committee with the Prime Minister, and I think we raise these issues because I think the safety of our people and our tourists will be important issues for the future. But to carry it, not easy to obtain. If you do strictly follow the law, it's not easy to carry gun around. You need the permission, and it's not allow you to carry it openly in the public. So there are some laws that, if we strictly enforced, would be maybe safer than right now. So I think we have to at least follow the law strictly and enforce it strictly.
The southern city of Tainan is known as the gastronomic capital of Taiwan. It's a foodie's paradise that veers in the direction of sweet. Today, Andrew Ryan kicks off a 5-part series of Where's the Mayor Taking Us by sampling tomatoes with a Tainan twist.
Old barbershops turned into slow travel destinations, Taiwan's only remaining salt fields, and a gastronomic capital with a decidedly sweet tooth. These are just some of the things you'll find in Tainan. Everywhere you turn in Tainan, there are traces of history. It is, after all, the oldest city on the main island of Taiwan. Now, I assumed that my tour would begin with a historic spot, but my host has something else in mind. For the first stop in our trip to Tainan, the mayor has arranged for us to meet at a fruit store. But apparently it's not just a place to buy fruit, it's also been a popular local hangout for more than 70 years. 您今天带我们来的这个地方是什么地方？
这个地方就是我们台南很多文化荟萃的地方，还有最好吃的在这边，就是我们隔壁的丽丽冰果是啊。
Many of the fruits they sell at the store are grown right here in Tainan. The city is home to some of the nation's biggest fruit exports, like pineapples, mangoes, and avocados. They also grow more pomelos here than any other place in Taiwan.
我们台南人很好客，所以这些通通都给你吃，没关系。
谢谢市长准备。
中秋节要吃这个了。
OK。
是这个 pomelo。
pomelo 有2种。
你可以先吃红色的。
OK。
因为这个时候白色的比较甜。怎么样？
酸酸甜甜的。
对，
很好吃。Tainan is known as the gastronomic capital of Taiwan. Many of the local dishes, even the savory ones, are sweeter here than in other parts of the country. And there's a reason for that. Tainan was once a big producer of sugarcane, and people came to associate sweet foods with wealth. But imagine my surprise to learn that they even dip their tomatoes in sugar.
因为台南有很多 sauce。
OK， 这个 sauce 里面是什么呢？
糖吧。
糖、白糖，然后姜，好像也有梅子粉，对不对？
梅子粉有，你也可以直接沾梅子粉，也可以加水、加白糖，
然后还有酱油膏。哇，好吃，真的很特别，这个真的跟我们台北吃的不太一样了啊。The fruit shop's owner, Li Wenxiong, says they've been eating tomatoes like this for as long as he can remember. Li has been collecting interesting facts about fruit for years, publishing his own monthly brochure full of pictures, stories, and local history. Back in the day, he says, the fruit shop was a popular hangout. People would even come here on blind dates.
朋友来，拢会来这吃水果啊。即嘛咖啡厅满世界，较早拢来开市场。
Fruit stores like this one still play an important role in the lives of the Tainan people. They may no longer come here to find love, but after 70 years, they still come here for their shared love of fruit. Justin Wu, Scott Huang, Peachy Drong, and Andrew Ryan for TaiwanPlus. Coming up in part 2, Tainan is home to more roundabouts and more barbershops than any other place in Taiwan. We'll show you their connection to slow travel. Plus, further ahead in the series, you want to see some historic sites? Don't worry, we've got plenty of those too.
That was part 1 of Andrew's trip to Tainan in our series, Where's the Mayor Taking Us? We'll have a new episode for you every day this week. An indigenous village in southeastern Taiwan is reviving a traditional ceremony for the first time in 15 years. Tiffany Wong has more.
An offering of millet wine and pig offal served on banana leaves. Donning red vests and flower garlands on their heads, the people of Papulu village have gathered to make an offering to the ancestral spirits who protect their community for the first time in 15 years. According to legend, these spirits have been protecting them from wars and floods for almost a century.
在二战时期，我们也避开很多的，比如说那时候美军来轰炸这个我们部落的时候，都被阻隔在外面。
The Papulu are part of the Pinuyu Mayan indigenous group, one of Taiwan's 16 recognized indigenous peoples. They say the spirits have followed them and protected them over the years. The last time they held a village-wide ceremony in honor of the ancestral spirits was 15 years ago. That was to mark the erection of a new ceremonial house to honor them. Since then, the village has held smaller ceremonies, often with members of one family. They say this has caused some of the traditions to become diluted through time.
最近可能有一些的活动，造成大家有部分的不清楚，可能会说不满意。那有透过这样的，大家能够把心胸放宽一点。
Passing on traditions is important for Taiwan's indigenous people, who make up only about 2% of the island's population. Bapulu village leaders hope that Sunday's ceremony can help reunite the community ahead of the annual hunting festival in December. James Lin and Tiffany Wong for TaiwanPlus.
The 4th Asian Para Games have officially kicked off in China.
我宣布，杭州第4届亚洲残疾人运动会开幕。
Taiwan is sending 94 para-athletes to this competition, playing in 14 sports. They joined 3,000 athletes from around the world, competing in over 500 events. In the last Para Games in Indonesia in 2018, Taiwan took home a total of 25 medals. The Para Games follow the Asian Games, which wrapped up in Hangzhou earlier this month. Thanks for joining us today on Taiwan Plus News. For more from us, download the Taiwan Plus app or visit our website. Finally, check out these models serving up fresh looks at the closing ceremony of Taipei Fashion Week. I'm Eric Gao, and I'll see you again tomorrow.
I'm Leslie Liao in New York City, and this is Taiwan Plus News, a voice of freedom in Asia.